session for a hearing on LB74. Welcome, Senator Hunt.
Thank you, Chairwoman Sanders. I like these days where we keep it in the family and we just have our little committee member bills. Good afternoon. I'm Megan Hunt, MEGANHUNT, and I'm here to present LB74. This bill would amend the Nebraska Political Accountability and Disclosure Act to allow elected officials to use campaign funds to cover the costs of travel and child care for their minor children incurred as part of their official duties. Under current law, office holders may use campaign funds to pay for the cost of work-related meals and travel for themselves and their staff, but they cannot use campaign funds to pay for the child needs that arise as part of their service in elective office. For elected officials with children, especially very young children, this presents a special challenge. I experienced this for all of my first term and still today. When you go, for example, I have been on, ever since I was elected in 2019, every year I've served on different boards and committees for the National Council of State Legislators or the Council of State Governments, and so there are obligations that come with that. You have to go to the conferences. It's not just the big national conference. There's often different meetings throughout the year. And these things are truly a function of our office. But for being elected, I would not have to do things like this. And it made no sense to me as I went through the process that I could use campaign funds to pay for my entire staff to go to a conference in Hawaii, and I could buy rounds of drinks for everybody the whole time I was at the conference with campaign funds. But I couldn't use those same funds to buy a ticket for my minor child to come with me to a conference where I was speaking and giving a presentation in Indianapolis or Chicago. And it really hindered my ability to do my job. It works this way because when the rules were written, they didn't really contemplate the possibility of a young, low-income, single mother being a state senator. When I was first elected, paying $300 out of pocket for another plane ticket for my kid to come with me would have been really prohibitive. And so it was a choice between, so I pay out of pocket for my child to come with me, my 8-year-old to come with me to this conference where I'm presenting, or I pay for somebody to stay home with them, and that's also a big expense. That may be more than $300, depending on how long the conference is. So it just really frustrated me to have, $65,000 in my campaign account, but I didn't have $300 of my own money to make sure my kid was taken care of when I did my job. With this bill, there's no cost to the state. Obviously, it's really on the office holder's own dime with the campaign funds that they have worked to raise. And these funds are already authorized in statute to be used for specific purposes related to the duties of our office. So I would argue from my experience that, if I have to go to give a presentation at a conference in some other city, then that is an expense related to the duties of my office because I can't leave my kid home alone. That's why this bill doesn't apply to things like spouses or older children because, it wouldn't be necessary to bring them with you. And obviously, if you have a partner or a spouse at home or a grandparent or something and you can leave your kid home, that's great too. But I'm saying for all people, that's not the case. So it's important that we allow them to use the funds that they've raised, that people have chosen to donate, that are still going to be accountable to Nebraskans in the same way that all of our other spending is accountable, to use those funds for that purpose. In 2018, so some legal piece here, in 2018, the Federal Election Commission authorized the rights of states to enact laws like this law. And since that time, 17 states have passed similar laws with bipartisan support. That's 17 other states that have authorized the use of campaign funds for this purpose via legislation. But a total of 39 states have also authorized this when you include those who have accomplished this via ethics rulings. Whether that's like a Secretary of State opinion or an Attorney General opinion. So they didn't have to pass a bill, they just had an opinion from the Attorney General saying it was fine, and we don't have that here, and this bill is a way to remedy that. When our campaign finance laws in Nebraska were written, it was a different world, and the lawmakers at that time did not contemplate single parents or low-income parents in public service. Thankfully, we no longer live in a world where only well-connected, affluent men can serve in public office while their wives stay home with the children, and it's time for us to update our laws accordingly. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator Hunt. I have a quick question. Was this brought, did we hear this year or so?
I have brought this bill every year.
And what has happened?
Let's see. Last time it got voted out unanimously. It's been voted out unanimously a couple times, but didn't get a priority or didn't get scheduled, like just kind of that falling through the cracks type of stuff. I think it would be a good candidate to include in a package. I think I'll work harder in my last 2 years here to get that through, just to kind of help other candidates that are coming up through the system. But yeah, it was never a bill that had a lot of opposition. It just fell through the cracks a little bit.
Thank you. Let's see if there's any questions from the committee. Senator Lanowski.
Thank you, Chair. Do you see putting an age limit on this at all?
I mean, I would say minor child, so.
Okay. And then do you see putting a price on it? So that the figure you used was $65,000 in a campaign fund. Constituents don't want to see $50,000 of that spent on daycare.
Absolutely, yeah. I guess I would say, thinking just in terms of common sense, I wouldn't over-legislate this. I mean, these are my campaign funds that I worked hard for. I want to use them for other things. I would not use this for childcare. I would use it hypothetically if I was at a conference or there was an emergency and it was like, okay, I need this person to watch my kid for 3 hours, like maybe that type of situation, but it would not be like, oh, let me enroll my kid in daycare and use all my
Right.
campaign funds.
Yeah, I mean,
And I don't think any candidate would do that because we work so hard for these funds and we do have to report the way we use them. So I would think that my voters would say, look at my NADC report and be like, why did she spend $50,000 on daycare? That would be unrealistic.
Yeah, I just don't know. Does 2,000 look okay? Does 5,000 look okay? I don't know what it would be.
Sure.
And then the last thought I have is, and maybe not even this year, maybe an amendment at some point, is extending it to children who have special needs.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, or maybe, I guess a dependent or something like that. I don't know what the legal term would
Yeah.
be, but not a bad idea. Like if you had an older child that had a disability or some kind of
Exactly,
need for
yeah.
caregiving. I'll think about that. I don't think that's a bad idea.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for being here, Senator Hunt. And I appreciate this as a parent of minor children. What's the difference between what you can use this for and just like everyday expenses then?
So what makes this type of use different from using it for like personally, you're just talking about like for personal needs, like
Yeah.
for personal spending. So the difference is what the NADC calls the but-for test. I would not have these expenses of having to take my kid to Indianapolis for a conference, but for my service as a state senator. If I was not a candidate, if I was not a senator, I would not have to be at these conferences if I didn't have that role. So all of these expenditures would obviously be accountable to the Accountability and Disclosure Commission. Donors and voters and everybody could see what candidates spent on travel, and none of this would cost anything to taxpayers or the state.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions? You see none?
Thank you.
Senator Hunt. Let's see if there are any